right, today we're starting another major project, I think. I don't think this is going to be a very easy one, but definitely needs to be done. So we talked a little bit about the water damage that we've had in the past, and it got kind of bad this spring. We were getting quite a few leaks coming in around the front window. Another video about solving that. So right now, I think that we've got all of our leak problems fixed. And so it's time to look at repairing some of this cardboard type stuff. And it was obviously not a new problem. There's a fair bit of mildew and stuff in the back here. So definitely needs to be replaced. When we got the coach, there was obviously some water damage problems. There was quite a bit of water damage down here, and the windows had been resealed. We did the roof rails. So there's been lots of work done to fix the water leaks. And I'll say that we are 95% sure we've got water leaks fixed. But definitely want to do something about these walls, because although the coach is running pretty well and very usable, it doesn't look very good with these walls all water stained and things. So we're going to take these walls out, these upper walls, the lower wall. We're going to replace it with, I don't know what it's called. It's kind of a compressed fiber board type of stuff. I know a lot of people use like waterproof, I think it's like FRP, fiber reinforced panels, or just like a sheeting type stuff that you'd put like in a shower. We didn't really like the look of that. We looked at some of it. It was pretty thin, and we couldn't find the board type material that was thicker. And we want to put a little bit of padding on it, and then we want to cover it with material. And so we liked the look of this fiberboard type of stuff that we got. Now the risk is it's a little bit like what's already here, and so if it gets wet, it'll probably get damaged, especially if it gets wet quite a bit over and over again. So we'll need to just make sure we get our leaks fixed, and I guess if we do end up redoing it and doing it differently some other time, we'll have a lot of experience to build from. So overall, pretty excited though about getting this fixed. We got the material that we're going to use to cover things. So the top, we got this kind of a canvasy looking material. It's actually, I don't know the brand. It's like, I don't know, Sunbrella or something that you would use for awnings and like umbrellas or like cushions and things on patio furniture. So it's kind of weather resistant, UV resistant, rain, water resistant type of material. And we're going to put, we have some felt padding that we're going to put behind that. So this will be on the top. And then we got a really cool orange for the bottom here. So it'll look kind of like this. It may be a little overpowering on the orange, but I think once we have the table in here, I think it'll look really nice with the rest of our orange furniture that we've got. And so it's going to have a little bit of padding to it. It's the same kind of material, weather, UV, water resistant type of stuff. The felt backing that we got is also a polyester material, so mildew resistant. So we're hoping, that it won't get wet, obviously, but if it does, we think the materials we're getting are probably going to hold up okay. So that's the plan. The next step is to take off the table mount, take out the benches, take out the cabinets up top here. We basically need to expose this whole wall. We need to take the curtains down probably. And we're going to do this wall first. We'll see how that goes before we tackle the other side or the back or some of the other places where we have some wall work to do. But yeah, that's our plan. Okay, so we've got the wall torn out, and we obviously had to turn off the circuit breakers before we took this outlet out, because we don't want to have any fire or shock hazard there. But this has been opened up previously because there was a bunch of this insulation back behind the wall that was all water damaged. So this doesn't really fill the cavities very well, so we're going to redo some of that and make sure that we've got the insulation filling up any open space back there. And then we'll be working on cutting our pieces of the new board that we're putting in and covering it with the fabric and everything. We talked about taking out the benches and because the old wall was so floppy and wet and rotten and stuff, it kind of just pulled out. But to get the new one in, we think we're going to have to at least remove this kind of back bench, and just so we have some room to position it in, and we think we'll be able to slide it in between the wall and this front bench. Maybe we'll need to take this one out too. We'll see as we get going. The top was a bit of a challenge. So the cabinets here are held in with 2 bolts in the back on each side, and then 2 bolts up into the roof on each side. Unfortunately, only half of the bolts would come out. The other half seemed to be stripped or cross-threaded or stuck or something, I don't know. And then the ones on the back here go through the wallboard and into something behind it. And that is a little bit goofy also, so we got most of those out. We had to take the bolts on the back out so that we could get the top part of the wall down, which we did. But we ended up not having to take the cabinets all the way out. We left the screws into the roof, and then we put a couple of the screws back into the back to hold the cabinets in place while we work on the walls. I'm hoping that we won't have to actually take the cabinets down. I think we'll be able to slide the new wall up behind, put the bolts into the back, and hold everything back in place. We're going to have to kind of see how that goes when we get back to this. I don't really know how stock our setup is here. It looks like some of this maybe has been changed out at some point, or maybe salvaged from another coach. So this is maybe a little unique to us, but it seems like you have to take those bolts out of the back of the cabinets to get part of that wall out. So we'll explore that a little bit more as we go back to putting it back together. So next steps, we're going to take the bench out on the door side of things. We're going to start tracing out the wall panels that we removed on our new board material so that we can cut our boards, and then we'll work on covering things. So making some progress. All right, so we're in the garage. I've got a sawhorse set up with the new material on it, and these are all the pieces that we took out of the passenger side behind the dinette. And so I was hoping that I would be able to get all of the pieces for that one side out of a 4x8 sheet. I bought 2 4x8 sheets, one for each side, and it looks like it's going to work pretty well. I've got things laid out and got enough space for everything. So I'm going to spend a little time measuring and marking and deciding how I'm going to cut these out. Because of all of the warping and kind of misshapenness of some of these pieces, and the fact that some of them are torn and broken, I'm gonna just be careful in not just only tracing them. I'm going to trace, but also measure, and then I'm going to double check those measurements back in the coach. But overall, I think take a little bit of pattern making here on the new material, and then I'll use a jigsaw and a circular saw to cut things out. But I think this will be pretty straightforward. Once we get all of the pieces cut, then we can work on the covering them with the felt and the material and things that we've got. So making some progress. All right, so we ended up needing to pull the cabinets out because as we were trying to fit these side pieces and the top piece in, it was too hard to work behind the cabinets and the curtains. There's these jack nuts installed in the ceiling that hold the cabinets up, and several of them were just spinning in the ceiling and not unthreading, and so it was a big pain to get the cabinets out. But now that I have them out, I can replace the mounting hardware and fix some of that up so that it maybe won't be as big of a problem next time. So overall, even though I was hoping not to take the cabinets out, I think it's going to be a good thing. And so what we're doing now is test fitting everything. We've started to put some of the fabric on some of the pieces. We've got some of the other pieces cut. But as we're putting these together and test fitting them, we found this one in particular is not fitting very well. And you can see the condition of the one that we took out. It's all torn and floppy and ruined. And so I tried to use this as a pattern, and obviously it didn't work very well. So we've got some gapping here, we've got some gapping over here. If we try to push it over so that it fits on that side, then the whole thing is kind of twisted, and we've got now some gaps here and a gap here. So I think what I need to do is, this was a good try, but this is not going to be very much help. And I think I'm going to just make a new pattern for this out of a piece of cardboard. The rest of these 3 pieces fit pretty well, and there's a seam right here that basically separates the top and the bottom. So I can get these 4 top pieces all fitted, and then next work with the lower part. So I'm gonna do cardboard, I think, to fit this, and then make sure everything fits, and then we'll cover it and work on mounting it and putting things back together. Of course, there's still the bottom, there's still insulation, so if I pull this out, we'll be able to see that, oops, there's no insulation or anything up here, so we'll do a little insulating before we mount everything back up. But still making progress, just taking a little longer than we expected. Okay, so I made a cardboard template for this corner here, and much easier to make adjustments to the cardboard than it is the wood board stuff that we're using for our walls. So this worked out great. Then I was able to cut the wood piece, and we have now test fit it with the top, the bottom, and each side. It all fits, it all lines up with the window frame and behind the trim. It fits into the grooves that it needs to fit into. So I'm really happy with how this is looking. So next step is to go ahead and put the fabric and padding on each of these. So we'll show a little video of what we're doing there, and then we'll be able to start working on the bottom, and we'll need to reinstall the cabinets. Okay, let's talk about attaching the felt and the fabric to our pieces. So here's one of the pieces that we just cut, and I mentioned before there's a smooth side and a rough side. We're attaching things to the rough side, and what we're using as an adhesive for the felt, so we got a medium thickness felt. I think you can get whatever you want there, just as a preference on how much padding you want behind the fabric. This is a polyester felt. It's mildew and rot resistant and things like that. We thought that would be a good idea in a motorhome. And we are attaching it to the board background with this stuff. So Weldwood contact cement from DAP. And it's intended for indoor and outdoor use. It bonds in, well, 20 minutes. It works on, let's see, porous and non-porous materials, metal, wood, plastic, veneer, laminate, on and on. So it's basically a contact cement, and we spread that out on the wood. So this piece of felt hasn't been trimmed yet to match the wood. Here is a piece of wood with the felt already trimmed, and we're just trimming it basically to the exact same size as the wood, and using that contact cement to glue it down. But what we're doing is using either a really fine nap roller to roll it out on this, or on some of the smaller pieces, just a foam brush. Now, this contact cement kind of dissolves the foam brush and rubber gloves and things like that, so be kind of careful using this. It's fairly caustic. But basically, get a nice thin layer all over this. After the felt has been cut to the right size, leave it for 15-20 minutes until it becomes kind of tacky, and then we can basically just press the felt down to that. And we have a roller, so we can kind of roll it out and make sure that it's adhered well. It's been sticking super well, so it really hasn't seemed to be an issue. After we let that dry and harden a bit, then we're putting the fabric over. And the fabric, we're cutting out a little bigger than the shapes that we're putting it to. The corners, we haven't really done much of that yet, so we'll see how it goes. I think we're gonna have to kind of, cut some maybe notches out so that we can wrap it around. But basically, once the felt is on here, we put the fabric on, flip it over, and we're using a 3M high strength 90 spray adhesive, and putting the spray adhesive on the back and folding the fabric over into that spray adhesive on the back so that it's kind of stretched across the felt on the front. We're not actually attaching it to the felt. We're letting the fabric kind of float above the felt and then gluing it down to the back of the pieces. And then we've got some 1/4" staples, and the 1/4" staples are short enough to basically go through the fabric and into the wood, but not poke through the other side of the wood. I think these are 1/4", actually they might be 3/8". Basically we've got staples that were short enough not to poke through the other side. And basically once we have done the spray glue, stapled down the fabric on the back, then we're pretty much done. We'll leave it for a while, let the spray glue dry, and so far looking pretty good on the front side. And the thickness is not so thick that it doesn't fit into the slots and things that are there. So we think this felt that we're using and the fabric, just folded over and stapled on the back, is not adding too much thickness to this wood that we got to build the walls out of. And that's basically what we're doing to cover the walls. All right, we've made some good progress. So we've got this lower part of the wall now covered and installed. We really like the kind of bold orange stripes here. I think it looks nice with the benches, and then having a contrasting kind of neutral color on top, I think turned out really nice. We've got the table mount reinstalled. We've got the outlet reinstalled. It turns out we had to actually remove this piece of trim. So before we installed these pieces on top, we removed the trim and then we're able to slide this lower piece in. There wasn't any way to get it down behind this bench and up into this lip all at the same time. It was kind of a tight fit. So taking this off, getting it in place, and then putting this back on top and then putting in the screws worked out great. And then it's pretty easy to put these pieces on top. We did end up needing to remove a piece of trim around the window here to help get this one in the right spot. So, basically took off more than we expected, but it's going together really nice. One thing we noticed, there's a little bit of extra fabric here, and that's because when we were putting the fabric on the board, we're doing it on a flat surface, kind of a big workbench area. And now with the curved wall here, it's added a little bit of extra fabric on the front. I think that's okay, and I think it's maybe good that we didn't glue it down to the felt so it can kind of float a little bit. We'll see over time if that ends up being a problem. We could take it apart again and redo some of these things if we needed to, but overall we think it looks really nice. We think it's working really well. I'll just make a kind of a comment that the going back together and having kind of it look much better than it did is pretty awesome. This is maybe one of our favorite projects as far as just making the coach look a lot better. So a couple things to do. We've got the new jack nuts in the roof and along the top, so we'll need to kind of line those up with the cabinets. But basically it's just a matter of putting the cabinets back in, putting the bench back in, and we're pretty much done with this project. All right, project done. So got everything reinstalled, the bench, the cabinets. I think the wall looks great. So definitely a huge improvement over all the water damage that we had and the kind of cardboard stuff that was on the walls before. A comment on the wood stuff that we used. It's called a tempered hardboard, and it's a 1/4 inch thickness, actually 1/8 inch thickness. So, relatively thin, but really like the way it turned out with the felt and then the fabric. And this fabric is like an indoor-outdoor kind of patio furniture type of fabric. So hopefully it will hold up for a while. Definitely happy with the results. And we think we've got a pretty big improvement on this side. We still have the other side to do, so some things to do over on the bunk bed couch side. So we'll save that for another project. There's also some things to do back in the back around the settee or the benches that are back there. Quite a bit of that had been torn out at some point in the history of this vehicle. And so we'll do some work back there to kind of fix it up and get it to match what we've got on this between the top and the bottom. So pretty excited about the improvement and like the results.